I'm Alex Knox and one of the trustees at Pilgrims to Rome. We're going to be joined as well by Eamon Mullally, who's another trustee who's actually on the path itself. And he'll be explaining where he is in a moment. But just to run through a little bit of housekeeping for this evening, we have some guests. So we'll hear a short bit of some short questions back and forth with our three guests, and then we'll have a chance to break out, and we'll set up some rooms. So we'll get some communication between you guys. So you can chat a little bit about your experiences on the path, and we'll set some questions up. So there's some focus for those meetings. Basically, tonight is a chance for you all to get a chance to reflect a bit on your journeys. And certainly, I know my experience having walked the Via Francigena in 2022, there's nothing very much more I like than talking to other people about the path and getting a chance to talk a little bit about it. And but it's a rarity to talk sometimes to others who've had that same experience. So that's really what tonight hopefully makes some space for. As I said, we've got three, as it were, kind of speakers for this evening. We've got Jennifer Andrews, who I can see just giving a little wave there. It's great to have Jennifer with us. And Jennifer completed the Via Francigena, am I right, a week ago? So really kind of fresh off the path, and I think is spending a bit of time right now in the Pyrenees, which sounds like a lovely place to, I was going to say recuperate, but it sounds like you're going for a walk yesterday. So you're back at it already, but a chance to spend some time at the end of the walk. So we might hear a little bit about that as we go on. And we're really pleased to be joined by Efren Gonzalez, who's here giving a little wave there as well, from Florida. Efren was walking the path until 3 weeks ago. And I think those of you who have been following perhaps progress on the Facebook group will have seen that Italy's been hit by some really, really shocking weather. So Efren made it as far as Pontremoli. I think that's right.
That's right.
And again, we'll hear a little bit more from him. And I mentioned at the start, one of our trustees, Eamon Mullally. So Eamon is currently somewhere on the Via Francigena. I haven't quite established yet where exactly yet, but he'll be joining us. You can sort of see Eamon for a moment. Take a good look at Eamon right now, because you might not see him again. His reception is good to the point that we can hear him if his video is off. I'm sure lots of you may have experience with Wi-Fi on the Via Francigena, and that it can sometimes be a bit hit and miss, but we'll hear a little bit from Eamon as we go. So one thing that you'll notice in the course of this is that there is a chat function. If you look at the bottom of your screen, depending on whether you're joining on a phone or whether you're joining on a laptop or an iPad, there's 3 dots at the bottom, says more. And if you click on that, it will bring up chat. And it would be lovely as we go and as we start, that perhaps you might all, if you can find that okay, it would be lovely for you just to type in who you are, where you're joining us from, and perhaps if you have walked the Via Francigena, perhaps tell us when you walked it. And so yeah, that would be great. So who you are, where you're joining us from, and when you walked the Via Francigena, if indeed you have. I'm aware that some of you may be coming along to find out more, which is also fantastic. Has that, I'm looking at screens, but I don't think I can see everybody. Is that clear? Where have you sort of seen where the chat function is? If yes, if you haven't, wave your hand wildly. But that's great. It's not essential, but it's just nice and nice to be able to. Oh, hang on, fantastic! I can already see messages trickling through, so that's fantastic. We'll keep an eye on that, and always lovely to see you. I think there'll also be probably what I can suggest, and I'm talking a lot up front. You'll hear much less of me in a moment. But if you have any questions as we go, specific to our speakers perhaps, or for each other, in past calls like this, it's worked really well that you can just drop questions in there. We'll try and keep track of them and make sure that those questions get answered. One of our trustees, Julia, is in the background and is a font of knowledge, so can often just give an answer straight away. So yeah, that's what we'll hopefully use that text box for as we go. I've explained about the breakout rooms, which we'll get to. Just a chance really to give everybody a chance to speak, because it's all a bit, you know, with 55 of us, it would be a bit impractical to try and do all of that en masse. So we'll do that for about 15 minutes, and then we'll ask you to come back and perhaps report a little bit on what you spoke about. But yeah, we'll get to that in due course. For now, if you're able to just stay muted for this bit, and unless you're one of our speakers, and we'll ask you to unmute as we go. But having said that, we're really looking forward. Well, we're already hearing from you, but we're really looking forward to hearing from you and your experiences as we go, because I can only imagine the range of experiences we have in the room. And yeah, a chance to celebrate this amazing path that we all love. Well, I don't want to speak for you, but the fact that you're here, I'd like to believe that you do. So amazing. Right. If we can sort of move now into so if I could ask Jennifer to unmute for now. I'm seeing already, just looking, we've got, gosh, Sweden, New Zealand, fantastic. We've got Jennifer from, yeah, joining us from New Zealand. There we go. But yes, Jennifer, hello, first of all.
Hi.
How are you feeling after finishing this momentous walk? And do you want to say a little bit about your journey and yeah, what it's been like?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm tired. It's a long way. I walked Canterbury to Rome, and I'm just going to get the elephant out of the room straight away, which is that it was 2,409 kilometres, not the 1,800 that was signposted at Canterbury. So just putting it out there, it's a long way. But yeah, no, I'm feeling good. It's that, I think I was saying earlier, it's that odd kind of combination of feeling absolutely knackered and not wanting to ever move again, but actually having legs that want to keep moving. They're just sort of champing at the bit, and I'm in the routine. So yeah, I'm feeling good, great sense of achievement. And, you know, after something which, like many of us, you know, has been a fair while in the planning, you know, you don't just do these things overnight. So it feels at one and the same time momentous, huge, but then again, just another moment, just another day. Got to keep going, like tomorrow, next week, with mundane things. So yeah, it's an odd combination.
How do you, I'm sort of thinking about that huge amount of time that you've been on the path. So looking back from this sort of final point, how do you feel? How do you remember yourself at the beginning of the path? Not a huge question about yourself especially, but you are as a walker, and how your thoughts were there compared to how they are now.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think about that a lot, because very much at the beginning of the walk at Canterbury, and really like for the first week or two, you just feel like an ant on the face of the earth. You suddenly realize you get there and you've been thinking about this thing and telling people you're going to do this thing, and you know you're going to do this thing, but you haven't really thought about the enormity of it in practical terms. And when you start out on day one and you take those first steps and you do your first 20 kilometers, and you look at that versus 2,409 or 1,800, you think, wow, you know, actually this is ginormous. And am I ever going to actually make it there? And for the first couple of weeks, you just feel like a slug, you know, or a snail. It's just, you just feel like you're creeping forward. It's hard. And particularly I found the first third. I know we often talk about the Caminos in thirds. And for me, the first third of the Francigena is very much a mental walk. So, you know, actually it was hard. I started alone, deliberately so, but actually it was harder than I thought. Very solitary in France. The weather was still very wet. There was a lot of mud. There were long days. Nothing was open. There were no people, you know, let alone any pilgrims. It was really hard. And so until I met a fantastic Australian who I ended up walking actually most of the rest of it together with from the east of France. But you know, that first kind of stage across France was real mental. And then the second third, like over the big hills from probably Besançon to Ivrea, or actually Besançon to probably Cézanne after the Apennines, was kind of real physical. And so all you're thinking about is like, where am I going to put my feet in front of me? How am I going to get up this hill? You're really motivating yourself. You know, you're exhausted at the end of the day. And the last third is just deeply, deeply philosophical and spiritual. I wondered what would happen. And then just, yeah, all of a sudden I found that all the conversations we were having with ourselves, with other pilgrims, all of the thinking that I was doing just suddenly became deep and insightful and momentous. And I think it was because like all the rest was good and out the way now, you know, and into routine. And I'd gone beyond. And that was just really amazing. So I felt like everything came together in the last third. Camino magic happened, all the things happened. And so I feel like I finished in St. Peter's Square in my bare feet, having thrown my second pair of shoes in the rubbish bin ceremonially at St. Peter's, with like a real lightness of being, just light. I mean, I didn't have my pack on anymore, so that may have been part of it. But yeah, just this incredible lightness of being, which I think I take with me out of the pilgrimage. Just a real Zen kind of contentment.
Jennifer, that's an amazing sort of, I feel like, journey you've taken us on there from start to finish. It's wonderful, as I'm sure it is for lots of you here, to hear some of those place names again and get a sense of that journey. And I guess you're in a totally unique place with it all so new, well, so recent for you. It's amazing, and thanks so much for being here. There's going to be much more to hear from Jennifer later on. But if for now, Jennifer, man, I'll just turn to Efren for a moment. And Efren, if I'm right, first of all, you'll be much better to talk about this yourself. But you as lots of from the Facebook group will know, and indeed from social media, will know that you're an incredible documenter of your journeys and your walks, and
thank you.
You yourself did the Via Francigena 2020?
18. 2018. Sorry. Yes.
2018, and created some incredible content, which I know has been really useful to pilgrims ever since. So this is you returning to the path, and I'm really interested in that in itself. Why you wanted to come back? So perhaps you might just be able to touch on that.
Well, I had no plans of doing the Via Francigena this year, but I'm always so flexible. At the beginning of the year, I was in Spain. I was doing the Via de la Plata, walking to Santiago, and a few days into it, it kept popping in the back of my head. You know, I've been to Santiago like 10 times already, and only once to Rome. So I felt like the Via Francigena was calling me back. So I decided, let's just do another one of these epic adventures and go to Santiago and then go back on the Camino Frances, cross France, and then connect with the Via Francigena and head over to Rome. a trip that's like 4,000 kilometers. And I decided, let's go for it. I walked all the way to Saint Jean Pied de Port. Of course, I had to come back because of the 3-month visa that we had to face. And then after the 3 months passed, I had the option of either continuing on the Pew route in reverse, the Via Podiensis, and then to Geneva. But if I would have done that, I wouldn't have made it over the Grand Saint Bernard's Pass before it closed. So I decided I'll just go to Geneva, walk all the way to Lucca, and then come back next year and do the French section, and then walk, because I wanted to walk like the Tuscany section from Lucca to Rome in the springtime, since when I did it in 2018, I did it in the fall, as most pilgrims do, because we had to kind of time it so that we get over the pass. If we're starting in Canterbury, we only have a choice of doing it in the summertime. So I just wanted to see the Tuscany in a different light. And I started in Geneva. I walked to Lausanne, where I connected with the Via Francigena. I felt so weird, felt like deja vu being back, and all of a sudden recognizing all the great places. I have a great photographic memory. So I just remember everything, and getting over the pass, is like the toughest section of it, the struggles of having to do it with no winter gear, and the temperatures dropped. It's been raining like crazy in Europe this year, not just now. At the beginning of the year in Spain, I remember that all the dams were overflowing, all the farmers were celebrating that, like, the drought and the heat waves were gone. But for me, since I'm documenting the trip, I need to film, I need great weather. And that was the struggle that I had to face all the way up to Pontremoli, where I decided, you know what, I'll just come back next year and pick it up from here. My original plan was to make it to Lucca, and then if I had great weather, I would just continue on to Rome. But I had a flight back from Lucca, so I'll come back next year in the springtime, and I'll get to see Tuscany the way that I intended it to see it.
Fantastic, Efren. You touch on so much there, but I wanted to pick up on you mentioned the weather, and it feels like the weather has really kind of played. It's been a very much a strong character in your journey. So how has, if you could give us first of all a little rundown on what you've encountered, but also how important you feel it might be to remain adaptable to sort of unforeseen elements like that, and how that's been for you this time around.
Well, if you've seen my 2018 series, you know that I'm super flexible and I'm super positive. And after doing this for like the last 7 years already, that is the one thing, that is the key. If you want to complete a pilgrimage, a mountain expedition, a long trek, whatever you want to call it, there's so many unforeseeable events that are going to come at you, especially at the beginning, where you have to like adapt to the new situation, that you have to stay flexible and keep a positive attitude. Right now, I plan everything down to like the smallest detail. And then once I get there, I throw that out the window. But at least I have something to fall back on. I have all my stages set up, especially if I have a time frame that I can only be there for so many days. I have all my stages, and then as I'm walking, I can, one day go farther or take a rest day, or I'll stay flexible that way. When it comes to like the Via Francigena, you have the language barrier in if you don't speak French or Italian. So it's a little bit more tricky to make the reservation. So at least now, compared to 2018, you can book in bookings.com. I remember in my first trip, most of the places were not on Booking. So now we have that flexibility. And also compared to 2018, there's so many pilgrims now, so many. That was the biggest revelation that I had on this trip. I was walking with like 10 people per day. And in 2018, I didn't see anybody in France. And I got to see my first pilgrim at the Grand Saint Bernard's Pass. And then it was just 3 of us walking all the way to Rome. So it's like night and day compared to the way it used to be. There's more support now than there was in 2018. I kept saying to everybody, there's not going to be anything open on this stage. And then I will be pleasantly surprised. So that's always great. But I always had like my sandwich in my backpack. I always had something to fall back on. And, the weather was the one thing that when I did it in 2018, I didn't get many rainy days. This time around, it was like 3-4 days of rain, and then a couple of days where it would break, and then the cycle would repeat itself. All the rivers were overflowing. Many of the bridges were like swept away. So much mud. I mean, it was a mission. And I felt bad when I left for all the other pilgrims that I was walking with, that they continue on, and I kept following their journey. I was supposed to reach Rome today. That was the original plan. When I talked to you guys, I was going to do this from St. Peter's Square. So pardon my background. It was supposed to be something more like that. So they continue on and they made it. You know, as always, I'm not like the typical pilgrim, because, you know, I'm there to document the trip, which in a way I enjoy because it keeps me in the moment, in the present. I'm constantly looking at what's new, all the little details. Like, I don't have the time to like just reflect and just go into myself and forget about my surroundings. That is not my case. I'm the opposite. I'm constantly looking, thinking, what am I gonna say? What haven't I filmed? What's coming up ahead? And to do it this time for the second time, at least I knew what was coming. And still so many new things, new experiences that I had with all the pilgrims. That was the one thing that was different from my previous Camino. Now I had the time to spend time with other pilgrims. We will go out to eat. It's just a different atmosphere than when you're on your own and you're feeling like, especially in France, like it's like a post-apocalyptic world, and you're like the Walking Dead, and there's nobody around, and where's everybody? And you're camping in the vineyards and filtering water, and you know, it's a different adventure altogether. So I feel like now it's starting to pick up for sure.
Thanks so much, Efren. Yeah, it's wonderful to hear, you know, that sense of development of the path
Right.
just in a very short period of time, and that's wonderful. I think those of us who've walked the Via Francigena in the company of others that we meet along the way. Jennifer's already alluded to the friend from Australia, and just quite how close those bonds can be, and what an amazing thing it is to share a path like that with others. So, Efren, thanks so much. We'll obviously come back to you shortly. If I might bring in our disembodied friend Eamon for a moment. If Eamon, you're still there.
Hi, Alex. I am.
Hi there, Eamon. So, Eamon, I think I mentioned at the beginning, is one of the trustees with Pilgrims to Rome, and has been walking the path in stages around work, haven't you, Eamon? And this is your latest stage. But I'm afraid I don't even know, even though I've been following you closely, I don't actually know where you are right now. So could you just start by telling us, where are you, Eamon?
Well, it's not surprising, because, to be honest, I don't always end up at the place where I intended to get to that night. So where I actually am is a place called Pendenti, which is on the border between Tuscany and Lazio.
Fantastic. Well, I think I could see nodding heads about Acqua Pendente. So it sounds like you're making great progress. What I guess I wanted to ask about, yes, your journey as what you're encountering right now, and it'd be nice to sort of hear a little latest update from the past, given what Efren was just saying about rivers gushing through, you know, bridges and so forth. But also to touch on as well, Eamon, please, your the nature of your journey and doing it in stages, and how it is to return to the path and pick up as you've left off.
Yeah, so one of the things I really love doing is walking alone, and it's great to meet up with people and to talk with others as you go along, but those kind of long hours, especially through France, but through other places as well, through Switzerland and Italy, it's great just to have time to reflect and to think and to kind of argue with myself about all of the various conflicts that I find around me. Actually, I retired last year, so I'm not actually in paid work, but what I do is spend most of my time been involved in the local council. So I'm an elected councillor for the City of London, which in itself gives us lots of kind of opportunities to reflect. So just putting on one theme that was just mentioned about the weather. So I did 20 days earlier in the year from Aosta all the way through to Lucca. So I think it's about 18 days actually in total. And we had a fair amount of rain. But as you might guess, my name kind of really says it all. My family come from Ireland. And so a bit of rain, all you need is a decent umbrella, basically. So I was this crazy Irish guy kind of walking that through Italy with this really cheap umbrella, which is brilliant. It works so well. And so I've experimented with lots of different rainwear, but the umbrella for me was just the ultimate utility weapon because it was good against the sun and it was good against the rain as well. I started this particular trip 7 days ago, and it's a really short one. So tomorrow's my last day. I'm going back after tomorrow evening, and the first couple of days it was torrential rain. So of course the trusty umbrella comes out, which worked really, really well. And the rain was heavier than I've ever seen it before. It was absolutely torrential. So regardless of having the umbrella, I was kind of soaking from the waist down pretty much, just because of the amount of water. And things like little fords, little streams, which are normally passable. Sandy Brown refers to things which are seasonal brooks and seasonal creeks. They might be seasonal, but at the moment they're really full of water. And a couple of times I had to turn back and find, you go by the road rather than across those things. So occasionally I'll just march on through, up to my knees. But of course, that's kind of crazy. And you really reflect on it and say, well, actually, you have no idea how deep some of these things are. And if you were to lose your balance, you would be absolutely in a really terrible situation. So having done that once, I decided never to do it again, basically. It doesn't work, and I recommend that people don't do it. If there's any doubt, you kind of walk. It doesn't matter if it's going to take you an hour to walk back. You walk back and do it the safe way, basically. The other thing that happened to me with the bad weather was that I ended up with really clogged up boots, very slippy. And I'm normally fairly robust, but this particular day, back in the early part of the year, I ended up by pulling a muscle. And having spoken to a doctor friend of mine, which what it basically said is, look, you just need to rest that. Don't keep using it. Go somewhere where it's warm, where you can just put your leg up for 2 or 3 days, and it will be fine. You don't need to do anything more than that. And he was right. That's exactly what I did. It's exactly worked. So I think for me, there is, meeting those challenges as we come along, and the weather sometimes gives us unexpected challenges, which weren't quite as I thought. But generally, if I look at where I am right now, this has been a great 8 days. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's really, the weather is warm in the day this time of the year, pretty cold at night, down to about 8 degrees Celsius. I'm not too sure what that is in Fahrenheit. Somebody will instantly, I'm sure, work out what it is Fahrenheit and stick it in the chat. But 8 degrees is pretty cold. And so, just right now, outside, and first thing in the morning. So I like to start walking as the sun goes up. So I'm up normally before the sun rises, and then starting to step out just as it's starting to get properly light. And for the first 2 or 3 hours, it's cold. But it's great because, of course, you got to pack on your back, you're striding along, and you naturally get warm. The weather, walking at this time of the year, just being aware of the weather and some of the challenges that's going to give you, having the right kit to deal with the warm and the cold simultaneously. Is that helpful? Is that the kind of thing you wanted to hear, Alex?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. I think it's always nice to hear kind of dispatches from the front line. So good to know kind of how the how the Via Francigena is playing right at this moment. No, it's
Yeah.
great, and it hopefully leads us. You know, you describing your experience as now will maybe kind of bring to mind some of your own journeys, which now love you to reminisce about briefly in breakout rooms. I just wanted to, as just before we go in, I don't want to remotely embarrass Cathal Kelly, who's on the line. You may not want to even unmute yourself, Cathal, but just to say that we're joined by Cathal, who has recently completed his own Via Francigena and raised €70,000 for 2 charities, which is quite extraordinary by any standards. So yes, perhaps I don't know if you're able to hear me, Cathal.
Yeah,
but...
yeah. I don't know if you can hear me, Alex. Thanks very much.
Hello there. Hi.
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
I know you had no prior warning of that.
Yeah. So yeah, unbelievable support from friends, family, my community here. You know, unbelievable. I was not expecting to hit that kind. If I could figure out how to make that kind of money in real life, it's probably something else. Yeah. So it just shows that people really bought into. I documented the journey on social media as long as I went, and the local community really bought into following this local man walking from Canterbury to Rome. Yeah, and
well, it's incredible from you, Cathal. And I suppose perhaps what it shows is to those who hear about people walking the Via Francigena from, hear about sort of the idea of walking from Canterbury to Rome, say, it just sounds one of those kind of mad things to do sometimes.
That's it. Yeah,
and impressive enough that people will dig deep. But
exactly, and hearing Jennifer describe her account, it felt like if I was writing down what she was saying, because I felt if I could find the words to describe it in those 3 stages, it was exactly that: the mental battle of France, the physical challenge of the middle third, and then the spiritual at the last third. It was a perfect summation of the journey.
Well, yes, I'm really glad you say that, and I didn't want to say it myself, but I also massively identified with those 3 sections, and I thought Jennifer put it so well. So thanks very much, Cathal. And
thank you.
What we'll do now is we're going to just spend 15 minutes in breakout rooms. Now, some of you may absolutely feel that you don't want to speak yourselves, and that is totally fine. You have the text box and a chat box, so you can choose to write if you prefer. But we're going to put you into, I think I'm right, Julia, that there are going to be 6 groups, and there's likely going to be a speaker. One of our guest speakers will be in each one, plus other myself, Nick, who's the chair of the Pilgrims to Rome, is joining us. I can see Nick there, and Eamon. And we'll see how we go. But it would be lovely that it could be one person perhaps that you would select from your group, just to reflect back a few sentences of what gets discussed in your groups. But really, it's just a chance for everybody to get the opportunity to speak. And just as a few prompts before we go, and I've actually just been informed reliably that there will just be 5 groups. Not that you need to know that, but there will be 5 groups. So could I just ask you to think about why did you decide to go on the Via Francigena, and what did you take away from the experience? That will be, I mean, please do introduce yourselves first and say, as you did in the text in the chat box already, but say who you are and why did you go on the Via Francigena, and what did you take away from the experience? For those if there's anybody here who hasn't done the Via Francigena, please do say what it is that interests you about the Via Francigena. But as it's only 15 minutes, there won't be that long for each person to get a chance to talk. So just ask that between yourselves, just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak or type, and so that we can make sure that everyone gets heard. But that's great. So We will see you all in 15 minutes. You'll get a little message saying that we're shortly to be returning, and you won't have to do anything apart from click a button, accept yourself going into a group, and then you'll be brought back automatically. Hope that all makes sense. Send us a message if you have any trouble, and we'll sort that out. Thanks very much, everyone. Welcome back. I'm aware I'm doing so much talking that I was just in the middle of saying something to the group I was in just before leaving, and now I'm talking to you again. So that group must be sick of my voice, but really lovely to see you all. And I hope that you've just been having some really interesting conversations and being able to share. If there were 5 groups, I think that actually I was in group 1, and I don't want to, what I was about to ask my group 1 was if there was somebody who might like to share, and it feels absolutely unfair of me to jump in on Cathal again, but I'm if you don't mind, Cathal, would you mind just be able to sort of share a little bit, just so everyone doesn't get super bored of my voice, some of what we were just sharing, just in a couple of sentences even?
Yeah, so I suppose no problem, Alex. Just I think what seems to be coming up from we hit a few in our group that have done some of it, are planning to do the whole via, and I suppose France and the isolation and the kind of I don't like that word isolation. I can't think of another one at the moment. Sorry, the safety kind of France being on your own kind of came up, and I suppose me and you were just kind of talking about our own experiences about. Yes, it is the quietest part, and yes, it is the maybe the loneliest part, but there is other experiences that you get from that part. And Francis, you adhere to the World War experiences, and as I said, it's the main part where I stayed with local families, and it really you get a lot from those experiences. And I felt myself that, as I reflect back on the whole experience, that having gone through that in France made the whole thing work more as I got on into Switzerland and Italy. I hope I got that right there.
Really well summed up, Cathal. Thanks so much. That's great. And I don't know, group 2, if you remember which was group 2, but is there anyone from group 2 who'd be able to just feedback similarly as Cathal just did, some of what was coming up in your group?
Hey, okay, I think that's me then, huh?
Great, Herman, fantastic.
Hi, everybody. Our main subject was about the road conditions. If you walk on a road, on a busy road, how long do you walk on the road? And conclusion is that it depends, of course, if you are in France or if you're in Italy. They are completely two different kind of shoes. And one suggestion is take a high-waist jacket which doesn't weigh near to nothing. A high-waist jacket with you. More in Italy. In France, I think I never used it, but in Italy, maybe you could use it from time to time. But otherwise, even I said as in Italy, they drive Ferraris and Alfa Romeos, but Italians are quite good drivers, and they do take good care of you when you walk on the side of the street. So it's not really a problem. So don't be afraid of walking from time to time on a main road. That was a little bit the conclusion. And to have a good experience for that, I'm a great fan of Efren. He is absolutely great. I love his vlogs. And if you watch his vlog from 18, for example, there you have the good example that on roads, on busy roads or on side roads, it's absolutely easy to navigate if you have to go away from the dirt path, And there you have all the experiences he made lately, because I made my experience to go to Rome in 2003. That's 22 years ago, something like that. I did a lot of road walking because the signage, the signalization was near to inexistent. It didn't exist a lot. But I didn't have had any big trouble walking on the road when it had to be. So just take it easy worst case scenario, just close your eyes and go on. Absolutely no problem.
Thank
But
you,
watch
Herman.
Efren's vlogs, and then you see the whole trip between Canterbury and Rome if you have to walk on roads.
Yes. There's a certain degree of faith as pilgrims. I don't know, I feel like I should say as the CPR, we probably won't endorse closing your eyes and walking, but certainly roads can be, you know, being safe can be a good way of making the journey much more direct. And yeah, thanks so much. That's really, really helpful. And group 3, if we could jump forward to group 3, do we have a volunteer?
I think we were in group 3.
Hello,
And
Ken and Terry, hi.
yeah, I could try summing it up by basically just saying, I think the group consensus was, don't be frightened of the via, just start going, be flexible, and keep in mind that the bad adventures, or at least the difficulties you have, turn into the best stories later on. That's really, I think, sums up our discussion. And talking with Efren was a treat, definitely.
So glad to hear that, Ken. That's terrific. Thank you so much. And yeah, well, we'll hear a little bit more from Efren in a second, if Efren's all right with that. Group 4.
Yes, I'll take that for group 4 because we didn't discuss who was going to sum up. But we had a couple of us in the group, Pella and I, who have recently walked, and 3 or 4 others who are thinking about walking. So it was a good mix. So yeah, we mainly, the discussion centered around the practicalities of balancing time and commitment with the amount of trail that you want to walk, and where therefore you're going to do that section, if you're going to do the whole lot in progressive sections, and what that's going to look like, or if you're just going to pick like a section or 2 around other stuff. So that was really interesting, just to kind of talk about some of the things that come around that. And you were just saying, actually, that's also fine. And to the adaptability point that Efren was talking about, it's also really possible to potentially start out and want to do the whole thing, but not really know if you're going to do the whole thing. So just actually not necessarily book the whole thing, so that you've got that flexibility to book a day or 2 ahead, take a rest day extra somewhere if actually you're tired. The Francigena is really set up fine for that. So yeah, that was the nature of our discussion in breakout room 4.
That's great, Jennifer. Thanks so much. Last and certainly not least, group 5.
Take that, Alex. Just
Thanks, Nick.
we were a small group. Julia joined us, but it was Sarah, Britta, and Deb who are all in their different ways planning the route. I think they mirrored some of those issues that we talked about earlier on, but I think this particular discussion we were having with in response to Britta's question was experience of bringing a dog onto the as a companion service dog on the route, and we shared a little bit of experience in that. But I think it would be an interesting thing to help Britta's planning in particular, if there was anybody with experience of walking with a dog on the Via Francigena that they could share either in the discussion or in the chat.
Yeah, we'd be really grateful for that. So this is an example of where the chat would be really helpful. If there's anybody who could just drop a line, I think Britta would be really grateful. So thanks so much. And if not, Britta, we can keep in touch afterwards and see what we can do. Terrific. Well, that's amazing. I hope that the discussions were felt fruitful for you guys. It's certainly wonderful to have that kind of reflected back, and to know the kind of breadth of experience, but also kind of what's on the mind for those of you who are planning, which I realized that from our conversation, a good number of you are in the place of having done other pilgrimages yourselves and now looking to the Via Francigena and seeing what it might offer you. So I suppose we'll might bear that in mind for when we just nip back into breakout rooms for a short while just before we finish in half an hour or so. Efren, could I just turn back to you for a moment, please, just to sort of ask, really, we're hearing it already from a number of those of you on the call. who've interacted with your stuff, the content that you make, and you obviously have this fantastic reach with your social media and what you make. So how do you feel that work and that interaction that you have, how does that impact on your own pilgrimages and yes, and that interaction with the pilgrim community, how does that impact on your own walks?
Well, at least it lets me talk to you guys as I'm walking. Sometimes I'm walking for days on end on my own, and I get to talk to the people that follow me. They give me suggestions on the stage of places to stay, places to eat, things that I cannot miss. So from the planning perspective, they're kind of like they're walking with me. They're co-pilots, but also they give me motivation. I've been building this community since my first Camino in 2017. The Via Francigena was my second. So over the years, slowly, more and more people have been finding my content on YouTube mainly. And it's been a positive experience. I mean, I feel like if when I started out, I would have gotten like negative feedback, I would have just given it up, since I had a career in television before I started doing this. And then it's been super supportive, and I feel like I create the content for them in a way. I try to create the videos that I wish I would have seen when I was getting ready to go on the pilgrimage. And when I do the research, I watch everything that's out there. I read vlogs, I buy guidebooks, I try to get as much information as I can. I ask people to tell me the things that I should see, that I cannot miss. So that conversation that I have back and forward with I see them as my friends, and as I'm walking, they give me encouragement when things are not going great. I'm doing now for the first time, I'm doing like daily live streams, so I actually get to talk to them on a day-to-day. They ask me questions. Those are things that I can talk about on the videos. So it's just been great all around. And I cannot wait sometimes I get to meet my followers on the Camino. And that has taken me by surprise, because when I'm there walking, I'm just talking to like a little camera. There's nobody around, so I can just say whatever I want, and I'll decide later on what to include and what to exclude. So I don't feel like I'm talking to whatever 10,000, 20,000 people out there. I'm just talking to myself. In a way, when I'm doing my videos, it's sort of like a memento for me for later on in life, so I can look back at all these great trips that I got a chance to walk in, to experience. So the fact that now I'm doing it with all of the people that follow me is the cherry on top, I think. Yeah.
Just one other question. How is it to get to spend so much of your life on a path? I mean,
how is it?
Well, I mean, that's such an open-ended question, but I mean, from my point of view, it sounds such a perfect life. But there's a lot of paths, and it's a huge amount of experience, and so many sort of steps eaten up.
Right. Well, I've done quite a few.
Path again.
Right. I've done quite a few. I started out, before I started doing pilgrimage, like I didn't know about the Caminos in Spain or anything like that. I used to work in television for like 20 years. So living in the States, we only get like 2 weeks vacation in the year. And sometimes they even ask us not to take it all at once. So I would just do like a 1 week trip here and there. I started doing mountains before, like I did Kilimanjaro, Elbrus, Aconcagua. So I was doing like the 7 summits. And I was in LA when the company that I was working for, it was a sister company of Fox, 20th Century Fox. They decided to close the company. And for the first time in 20 years, I was without a job. And I'm like, all right, let's just do something that's more than 2 weeks. I found out about the Camino de Santiago. I go, well, I speak Spanish. I'll get to, experience Spain, walk across the entire country. Had no idea. I had not seen the movie The Way. I just bought a guidebook in Barnes & Nobles, bought a flight, and 2 weeks later, I was in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And when I got to Fisterra, that's when I decided, this was a totally different experience, nothing like what I had thought it was going to be. Let me give it a try. The Via Francigena was the second one. So once I got to Rome, I got hooked. I decided this is my new path. I'll figure out what I'll do from now on. And since then, I have done so many other trips, not just in Europe, not just in Spain. I've also gone to Japan. I did the 88 temples there, which was an incredible trip. So always being on the road has its ups and downs. I love it. I feel like I have a double personality. One is when I'm here, I'm home, and I'm editing all the time. And another one is when I just pick up my backpack and I go off to do a new trip. In order for me to choose the trips, I sometimes just let my audience decide. I give them like 3 choices. I do like a poll: which one of these will you want me to do? That's why I did the Via Podienses. That was not in my radar. And once I did it, I just fell in love with it. It was a totally different experience walking in that section compared to the Via Francigena in France. It was night and day. When I went to do the Via Podienses, I had my reservations after the experience that I had in 2018. I'm like, is it going to be the same way? But it was completely different. So yeah, and also in Italy, I did the Via di Francesco from Florence to La Verna, which it was great. I love Italy, and I'm hoping to one day continue and do the Via Francigena in the south, go from Rome all the way to the bottom to just complete the whole thing.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out, isn't it, that well, there's two things to mention. Obviously, there's the Via Francigena del Sud, as you say, which continues from Rome into Puglia and ultimately to Santa Maria di Leuca, which is a beautiful spot right at the southern tip of Puglia, and which would have been kind of the launch pad, Puglia, for walks on to Jerusalem. In fact, there are 2 pilgrims I know right now who are somewhere in the mountains in Turkey. I don't quite know how far they're going, but I walked with the Via Francigena with them 2 years ago, and now they've just reached the highest point on their walk on the Jerusalem Way as of a couple of days ago. So yeah, who knows where the path's going to take you?
For sure.
When you set off, and one thing we haven't mentioned, of course, which Nick, I'm conscious of time because I want to ask Jennifer a question, but Nick is just back from Puglia itself, actually, and there is some really good news about another path which is recently coming into the remit. Nick, could you just talk about the Britannica briefly?
Yes, thanks, Alex. The meeting in Puglia at Monte San Angelo, which is a wonderful place in the south of Italy, just on the spur above the heel of Italy, which is on the Sud extension route. This was one of every 6 months the confraternity, the European Association of Volunteer of the Via Francigena, which brings together representatives from all the different countries, officially approved the Francigena Britannica as an official extension of the Francigena route. Now, that's a route that we've been working on since 2019 to provide a connection between London and Canterbury, about 146 kilometers thereabouts, getting you out of London on as green as possible routes. I mean, currently, if you want to walk from London to Canterbury, you've got to slog right through the Old Kent Road, along main roads up through the heart of South London to get out of the city. This way takes you along the Thames Path to Greenwich, and then up in through green spaces going on towards Dartford and into the countryside that way. So it's a huge step forward in getting that official recognition. If you look at our website, and I'm just checking the chat, 1 or 2 people have been saying that they've seen some of our literature, newsletters, things like that. I really encourage you to join us in Pilgrims to Rome, because you get our quarterly e-newsletter and you get our annual magazine, which is chock full of information, and it also enables us, the membership that people pay enables us to fund events like this website and the development work that's around the Francigena Britannica. So it's a very exciting time, because it also means that people who are coming to London, either as visitors or indeed living in London or the southeast, can begin to walk the Via Francigena right from the city start, and it's easygoing, and a good preparation for the challenges to come. So very exciting time, and do watch this space. But get the plug in here now. Do join us if you're not a member already. Do join us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nick. Yeah, I'm really glad we got to mention the Britannica, because it may be something that interests some of you if you're flying to London anyway. It may be a lovely way of beginning your walk through England and extending your walk through England.
Can I intervene for a second?
Yes, Herman, yes.
Okay, yeah, just 1 second. London, St. Bartholomew Hospital. You know that.
By Southwark Station, or London Bridge Station, if I'm right.
Exactly. And St. Bartholomew, there is Rahir, I think you call him in English, Rahir. He is buried in this church, in St. Bartholomew Church, where is also the hospital. And there is just came out a book 2, 3, 4 months ago, telling the story of Rahir, who went from London to Rome. And in Rome, he converted, I don't know how to say, converted to be a monk, came back to London, founded the St. Bartholomew Hospital. And in this book, it's written about his trip from London to Rome and back to London. So this could be a good point for your search, or you can contact me wherever you want, and I tell you about this book, Rahir.
So Alex, just a quick one, just to say that
yes,
it's just along the road from the Old Bailey. In fact, so it's just along that, I think it's Giltspur Street, and it happens to be in the ward that I represent in the City of London. I know the priest there, and so if anybody wants are in London and they'd like a bit of a personal tour, if they just reach out, and I'm happy to show you really my neighbourhood, which is St. Bartholomew's Hospital and Rahir. Yeah.
That's amazing, Eamon. Thanks so much. And I suppose and thank you, Herman. It's a reminder of just how kind of rich the history is of those who've been walking from England to Rome over, well, 2,000 years, really. It's extraordinary. So thank you. And I must come to Jennifer before we throw you back into breakout rooms just to end the call. But hello, Jennifer. Thank you for sitting patiently.
No problem.
Can I ask, I mean, you've got this unique sort of time now, feels unique to have a chance to reflect on your journey. Is there anything that you feel that you might, if you were to do it again, you might do differently? Obviously, you probably there'll be so much you wouldn't want to change at all, but anything that you might want to do differently, perhaps somewhere you would have chosen to spend an extra day in?
Well, look, there's a few things. There's a few things I'd say to that, Alex. The first is a bit facetious. Look, if you did it again and you had all the knowledge of having done it, obviously you'd do a bunch of things differently. For a start, you wouldn't stay in like the jeep where the wolves howled at the door and you were the only one there all night. That would be not a thing. And you would know where all the good gelato shops were in Italy and have only the good ones. And you would know immediately where all the good croissant places were and where they weren't, and you would, go for those. So that's a bit facetious, but obviously, in a more serious note, I think the thing is, honestly, I would not change a thing. I wouldn't do anything differently. I mean, there's a whole lot, obviously, to unpick in that statement. But I just feel like, for me, having set out to do the whole thing, a little bit of the magic, of all of my 3 pilgrimages, which is not many, but certainly this one, which was so long, you just don't know how it's going to go. You just can't plan for everything. You're not in control of everything. And the best thing you can do actually is just let go. Just let go. Just go, you know what, whatever is going to happen, and whatever I need to do, I will find a way to deal with it and it'll work out. And honestly, that's what happens. And so the Camino that you experience will be the Camino that you experience. And I, and it's kind of like pick a path, on any given day, you start the day, you have no idea. I mean, you know where your end destination probably is going to be. But you don't know what's going to happen along the way. What actually is going to happen with the weather, what the route's going to be like. Is anything going to be open or not? Are you going to meet anybody? What's that going to lead to? It can lead to magic. And you just don't know. And so if you've already planned in your mind, like everything, and you have an expectation of what that Camino is going to be like in part or in whole, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to have regrets. You're going to wish you had done things differently. And what I feel like is, and I haven't been perfect at this, but I've managed to leave those fears and expectations behind. One thing I did think about a lot as I went along, and we talked about a bit as we went along, was what we call monstering. And so I would really encourage people, and I would try to do better at not doing this myself next time, monstering. So what I mean by that is looking ahead to something which is maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe like a month ahead on the route. In my case, it was one particular day of walking in the Jura, which I had monstered because I had heard from people, I had read things on the Facebook site. Pilgrims ahead were going, this day is really hard and the signage is awful. And there's a variant, and which variant should we take? And do we take the bridge? And do we not take the bridge? And it's going to take 10 hours. And oh my God. And in my head, I'd gone, oh my God. And then as it happened, although I had been walking by that stage for most of the section with another walker, I ended up walking that day by myself. I was like, oh my God, I'm walking like my most feared day by myself. What on earth? It was fine. It was absolutely fine. Like I just, within 5 minutes, the signage was excellent. The path was fine. There were no problems. I got there, no problems at all. I was just like, what am I doing? So after that, I was, I tried to be much more deliberate about just letting go, just looking at what's in front of me, playing the cards of what's in front of me. And something that we talked about in the breakout group with that is, actually what I experienced was that no matter what obstacle you encounter, you have the means to overcome it. You will find a way around it. There are always options, no matter how big the mud pool, literally no matter how big the pond on the path in any section, and there were many, there was always a way around it. Even if you had to cling on to the railings on the bridge and work your way along with your backpack on it to get around, there was always a way around it. And that was cemented when in Siena, we had a rest day and we were wandering around, we encountered one of the contrade, the neighborhoods, where their motto is, their icon is a panther or a jaguar, and their motto is, I photographed it in Italian and translated it. It was like, my momentum overcomes all obstacles. And it was just like the penny dropped. It's just like, you just keep going. You just put one foot in front of the other, and you will find a way, and you will have the best Camino that you will not regret.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Nothing I could possibly add to that. That is wonderful. Thank you. And it hopefully leads us into the very final stage of this this meeting, and it's so good of you all to be here and to share your experiences, to be so open. It's fantastic. So thank you. And I'm going to send you back into breakout rooms for a short while. And this time, for those of you who've walked the Via Francigena, we'd love you to share some of your highs, your best experiences of the Via Francigena, and perhaps some of the trickier moments, and perhaps what helped you overcome those. And for those who haven't yet walked the Via Francigena, perhaps this is a great opportunity just to ask some questions of those in the group that have anything, any nagging questions that you have as you're in the planning stage. So, yes. What was your best experience of the Via Francigena, and what were the tough moments, and how did you overcome them? That will be, and the way this time we're going to be going into one fewer breakout rooms. So we're going to be in 4 breakout rooms this time. So that should make the numbers work out. And again, if you could just try and make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. That would be terrific. But thank you all. Julia. Brilliant to see you all, and I hope that was a nice way of kind of rounding off the evening, getting a chance to share that in your groups. I don't think there's really time now. We're over time anyway, so thanks for staying on to reflect back. But really, I think all there is to say, unless Julia's about to jump in and say there's something else, is just a huge thank you. And going forward, it's lovely as pilgrims to Rome to get a chance to check in with pilgrims who've recently done the path and those about to do it, and it feels so much more human, I guess, to be able to have these interactions face to face. As wonderful as the Facebook group is, some of you may or may not have discovered the Facebook group yet, but as wonderful as that is for asking questions and having them answered, there's nothing quite like being able to link up with real people, even when we're several hundred or 1,000 miles apart. So yeah, thanks ever so much. And I didn't refer to the chat as we were going through, but I saw some really fruitful conversations taking place between you. So it's great to see those links being made. Yeah, that's all, I think. But have a lovely, I was going to say evening. For some of you, it will be the beginning of the day, or at some other point in the day. But have a great rest of the day wherever you are. And thank you all.